Hello and welcome to this webinar. This is Saving Time with SugarCRM's action button. Just want to get a quick audio. If you could hear me, raise your hand, just so I know that you're out there listening and can hear my voice. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. Okay. I'm Andrea Ayers. I work for SugarCRM. If you haven't been in any of my trainings before, I do the admin class and the Intro to Sugar BPM class. I'm a senior product trainer, instructional designer. I'm a certified admin specialist, and I work in Sugar University, which is just the training department inside of SugarCRM. I'm coming up on my 14th year with Sugar, and I'm out of Austin, Texas. That's a little bit about me. I did add to the screen our SugarU email address. And the reason why is because let's say in an hour after this webinar, you think of, oh, I wish I would have asked this question. I want to give you an avenue to do that. So you can always email university at SugarCRM with any questions that you have about training or you need some knowledge about a particular topic. We may be able to answer it. We may have a class on it or course, whatever that we may have, but we also may have documentation or knowledge-based article or something to give you. Okay. So I'm just throwing that out there. You'll see that again at the end of the presentation also. So this is our agenda today. We're going to first start with, I know, the beginning, right? What is an action button? What are the benefits of it? Why would you need one? What's the point of it? Best practices. We're going to talk about some stock action buttons that are in cases. And stock, I mean like out of the box, like you get them free. They're there already. And those came out in 13.1 if you use cases. And then we're going to go into how to create an action button. So first I'm going to go through a couple slides, and then we're going to go into the system and actually see the stock action buttons and how you can personalize them for your organization. Then we're going to create some action buttons that are I'm just going to create them, customize them in front of you, and then we're going to show you what they look like to your end users. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end, and then wrap up with some resources. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions as we go along. So you have chat available in Zoom, and I do have a co-host with me. So Bree may be able to answer some questions, but some I may just notice them and add them in if it has to do with what we're talking about right then. If not, then I'll address them at the end. Okay. So I don't want you to lose any questions. If you have any, please ask and we will get to them at some point. And I may answer them as we go along also. Okay. So that's your choice, which way you'd like to do it. I will try to keep an eye on it on my side. And if you'll put the questions in chat instead of the QA, that way we have one place where they all are, and I'll make it easier for us to track it. Okay. All right. Also, one other thing I want to point out, get a piece of paper or pen or get a Word document out, whatever you want to do. And as we start talking about these action buttons, I'd like you to start thinking about how can you add an action button yourself into your instance. So is there an idea that sparked in class that you think, oh man, that would have been a good idea if I could put a button on this particular record to do this particular thing? Okay. So as we go through, start thinking about that yourself. All right. I'm not going to quiz you or anything at the end. I just want you to have a takeaway when we're finished. So what is an action button? So I know the obvious answer here is that it is a custom button, right? Added to a record, but also can be added to several other places that have to do with that record, right? Not just on the record view, but it's added to the record. And it enables your users or you, depending on who's actually on the call here, to perform some quick actions directly from the record, such as email or creating or editing a related record or opening an external web page. Those are just examples. Okay, we're going to go into all the details of all the things that you can do. Action buttons are implemented in Studio. They are a field, which means that they're subject to access control rules. So for example, you can go into a role and into that particular module, go all the way down to the field, which that's what this is. This is a field that we're going to be creating. and change the access for a particular group of people in a role. Okay. Also for the team, right? If you can't see the record, you're not going to be able to see the button, right? That makes sense? Right. And you have to be an admin in order to create a role. Now, I'm going to create this field. Now, I will say this. There is a way in a role to give admin access to someone for a particular module, and that person could, they're still a regular user, they could create a action button for that one module if they knew how to do it, right? So just gonna put that there. So, and they also can be extended with Sugar Logic and Sugar BPM. For example, if I wanted to create a email that I want to send out, I can have it automatically using Sugar Logic add who the two should be in the record. Or I could have a create a record and some of the fields could be populated based on fields from the parent record. So I can do a related record formula in the actual action. Now, we're not going to get super deep into Sugar Logic today, okay? So this is primarily about action buttons. So I'm just laying the foundation so you can grow your knowledge later about action buttons, okay? So some of the benefits. Obviously, it saves time, right? So if someone can just click a button rather than clicking all over the place to find a particular answer or do a particular task, then that's better for your users, okay? Which will lead to boosting productivity because they don't have to go to multiple locations to achieve a particular task or do multiple clicks. They can get their work done a little better. Sugar Logic can in a particular action button trigger a desired action when the button is clicked. And by implementing these smart action buttons, you can streamline your users' workflows, improve their overall experience of Sugar CRM. So anything that's going to help your end users adopt Sugar, use it, and be able to do things faster, the more likely they're going to be into it and be able to do their task faster. So just a few best practices, all right? Hold on a second, my mouse has disappeared. So first of all, you can identify users' most common operations and create an action button for those tasks. So you may have to watch a user use Sugar, right? And watch what they do. And then start identifying things that you could easily put into a button that would make their life easier. You can make sure the buttons are clearly labeled and easy to find. Test the buttons thoroughly to ensure that they work correctly. That means that I would create them in your sandbox instance. So it's a copy of your production environment. And that's where you're going to make sure they all work. I get a super user in to test them for you to make sure, yep, this is the way we have requested this to work and the action we wanted. Super, great. And then once it's all tested in the way you want it, then you can put it into your production real instance for all your other users once you inform them that it's happening. Try to give your button a task-oriented name like new, create, share, update, import, something like that where it's a action that they need to perform. Minimalism is key. So when you're adding an action button to a layout, consider what your users would do with them, right? Include only the necessary fields for them or whoever handles that case or call or record, resulting in an action. And use the preview button it's in the layout configuration panel, which I'll show you in a minute, to see how that button's going to look, especially if you're adding more than one button at a time, which you can do when you're creating this new field type action button. Okay, so out of the, and this came true for those that are in, how many of y'all are in 13.1, version 13.1? Raise your hand. How many do we have? Nobody? Okay, here we go. I'm just getting slow responses on my side. You're probably pretty fast. Okay, so about half of you. So for those of you that already have 13.1, you will see this in your environment, okay? For those of you that don't have 13.1 yet, you're gonna, right? This is coming up. So this is something great to anticipate. So there are three main buttons that are now in cases. There is a claim button, and it's over. This is what it looks like in Studio. Let me give you a little bigger look at it. There's a claim button, and we're going to look at these in a minute, okay? Where you are looking at a case and you click claim, claim. It's a button at the top of the screen, and you'll be able to, if you're the current user looking at that record, then the case will be assigned to you, meaning that you're pulling it basically from a pool of records of cases, and you're going to claim it as yours, and then it's going to be your responsibility. There's a close button, and the close button is just a quick way to close that case, right? It will change the status of that particular case to closed. And then there is an unassigned menu, which is this one right here. And it removes the assignee from the case, and it's in the top, just like all the others, the buttons at the very top of the right-hand corner, and that will free up that particular case to be assigned or claimed by someone else, okay? So we're going to go into Studio when we go into the demo section, and the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is these three buttons, and I'm going to show you the back of them, right? And then I'll show you what they actually look like in the cases module itself. Okay, so here's some examples of an action button. Now this is a very small list. This could be humongous, right? You can create all different types of action buttons. But as an example, you can do escalate a case. You can reject a lead for whatever reason. You need to reject it. Maybe it's a duplicate. Maybe it's just bogus information that came in from a web to lead form. It could be a lot of things. So you're just doing kind of a cleanup. There's you can create a call record, which is just a create record option on an opportunity. You can access supporting documents like a website page. Maybe your price listing is on your website and you want your sales reps to be able to pull that up very quickly when they're looking at a quote or when they're looking at an opportunity. You can email a group or a person, doesn't have to be a group, about a particular action, and you can even include a map to an account location. Like that's what the button will do, right? Okay, so adding or creating a action button. Like I said, it is a field. Okay, so in Studio, let me get another check here, poll question. How many of you have actually tried to create an action button? Raise your hand. Try to do it. All right. Doesn't mean you're successful. You went in there and you're playing with it. Okay. About half of you again. All right. Those of you that haven't, welcome to action buttons. We're going to work together and create some. So if you have created other fields in Studio, it's going to be very similar, the first step of it, right? So you go in and you're going to, in this case, this is an account. Under accounts, we went into the field component. They clicked add field, and it brings up this list. And your data type or field type is action buttons, the very first thing in the list. Then you're going to label your fields. Now, if you're going to just one field, then label it whatever it's going to be, log call. Okay. If it's going to be more than one button, I would do account buttons or contact buttons. And I'll show you how you can group them together or not group them and put them in different locations. Okay. And this field name works the same way as if you put a field name in for any other field. You put the capital letters in at the beginning of each word and underscore for the spaces. And when you click tab to the next field, it will fill out the next two labels or fields correctly, with the display label being what will show up if you add the fields to a layout inside the actual record itself. Now, you can add the buttons at the top of the screen, but you can also add them in the actual record. which is pretty cool. So if it's something that pertains to maybe another field that's there and you want to have access to something very quickly, that button could be right beside or below or above, whatever, a field that's related to it. Okay, and then all you have to do next is click Configure Button. Okay, that is not on any of the other field types, right? This is the new part. So you're going to click Configure Button, and then you're going to go to this page. And there are 3 panels on this page. There's an action panel, properties, and layout configuration. Okay, so let me just talk about real quick what I do. This is my best practice. This isn't necessarily SugarCRM's. I start off with the action panel because that's what this button's going to do, right? And then I label it with the properties, and then I preview it and put it in different locations in the layout. Okay, so I start with the action, then the properties, then the layout configuration. You don't have to do it that way. You don't have to. This is just the way it makes sense for me. Okay, so in the action section over here, here's the list of all of the types of buttons that you can create. Okay, hold on one second. Moving my mouse around over here on another screen. Okay, so you can assign a record to a designated user, or even the current user, like we were talking about in one of the examples, which is just a check mark box, the current user. So let's say that you want to, in a particular internal process that you do, you look at the record and then you send it to your manager. So instead of having to go down and change a field, all you'd have to do is click a button that says assign to manager, and it will assign it to that particular person. Okay, that's just an example. The next one is to compose email. Okay, which makes sense what it is, but it enables you to quickly compose an email based on an email template. So you have to have the email template first so that you can select it in this particular process. So this action panel is going to change depending on the type of action that you select. Okay. You also can use Sugar BPM email templates if you need to. There's an option on it that allows you to use process email templates, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to see it if you don't check mark the box. You can also create a record. So that's a related record to whatever your target module is. So if I was in accounts and I went into action buttons, I'm going to create a record that's going to be linked to my account record, that record I happen to be on at the time. Okay, so it has to be a record that already has a relationship. You can even do a doc merge. If any of you have done a doc merge before, you have to have your template for that too, right? So it's going to launch doc merge to create a document. So it's going to pull the data from the record that you're on and put it into the template that you've already created, okay? It can also open up a URL. This one I like because a lot of companies have not only a website, but also have an intranet, or they may have a community like we do that has certain things posted on it. Some things are simply just a link to different things that maybe sales may need or support may need externally that they want to pull up and maybe send to someone very quickly, or they just need to reference it so they can get a code off of it, whatever it may be. Especially for like manufacturing, or if you're doing shipping or anything like that, where you're going to have reference material, right? So that you can fill in a particular record. Or just look at it, and maybe you're on a phone call and you need to look at it real quick, you can have this open URL, okay? Second to the last, you can run a report, okay? Running a report could be any report. Obviously, it already has to be created, and you pick the report in the action section that you want to run. It's just going to pull up that report, okay? So predefined report in the record. Update record is going to allow you to update the specific field in the current record that the user is looking at, okay? So think of those items, remember your piece of paper here, and think about things that you can start to use these buttons for. Okay, instead of creating a whole workflow that's just going to assign a record, just create an action button. It's a lot faster, and it does the same action, especially if a user wants it done while they're looking at the records. Okay. All right, so that's the action panel. Once you know what you're going to create, the type of action. So let's say it's a create a record. I'm going to create a call record, or let's do a task. I'm going to create a task. So I'm going to create the record, put all the things down here that I want that's going to create that record. And by the way, do you see this plus minus right there? That means I could have more than one action type per button. Okay, I know, crazy, right? Don't get too fancy when you're first learning to create action buttons. Try to do just one. Once you get a little more experience, you can always go back and edit it. Okay. All right, so you can add more than one. Then you're going to go to the properties section, and the properties section, went too far. The property section is going to apply only to the button that's below it, right? So if you have more than one button, which you can, so right now I just have this button called button. So here it is right here. I could have more than one button by clicking that plus sign there. So this property panel has to do with this section, okay? First of all, so you're going to, you can name your button. So you call it whatever you want. Remember, try to put an action if you can in there. You can have just the icon. If you want, you can have just the name if you want. So you can see a preview of my button right here. It's got the little yeah, I guess it's a cogwheel, and then the word button, right? Obviously, that means absolutely nothing. So you need to put some real words in there. So if I'm creating a record, I'm going to say the type of record I'm going to create, like create task. And that's what the name of the button would be. And I could maybe make the icon a plus sign. So speaking of icons, I could pick the color of the button based on the certain ones we already have predefined. I can make it dependent on a particular formula. I can put tooltips, which is if you hover over that button, it will tell you what it's going to do, which is really great if you're creating buttons into an instance that people have already been using, something that's new. Any help that you can provide them is wonderful, okay? So that's what a tooltip is. You can show the icon. Once again, we have lots of icons out there. And they both, some of them come in like with the dark color, like if you're going to put a phone number, it will be in black, phone icon, it will be in black, or it will be outlined. So they'll have more than one option on some of them. And you can also have, there's also an option on it right here that's called stop on error. Just is a way to, if there becomes a chain of actions and it incurs an error, we don't want to just keep doing it over and over like a loop, right? We want to just stop it. So that option is there if you had some need for that, or you see that that is happening in your system. That was added not too long ago. So once you have your action and your properties, then you're going to preview. I preview as I go, right? As I change something, I look over at preview and see what, especially when you're in the property section, what it's going to look like. So there's two tabs. There's the button tab, and then there's the actions menu, or action menu, excuse me. So there's action menus in a lot of places, right? It's on the subpanel, it's on the list view, it's on anywhere where you have a little menu that pops up, it's going to be displayed there. It's on dashlets. So we'll get to the action menu in a second. So for the button, gives us a preview. We can say what type of button we want. So the buttons can display, just like you see here, like standalone, here's a button, or it can be a group, so like a drop down of a bunch of buttons, or sorry, I use the word group, but it's a single button, a drop down, or a group. A group just squishes all the buttons together with no space between them. I don't particularly like that view, but that's just me. I like to distinguish each button separately, and you can change the size of it. So this is the default size right there, but there are other options in that drop down for the size. And you can decide whether you want the label to be display the label on the record or in the header, or to hide it when you're in the edit. So when you're editing the view, if you want it to be in the focus store dashboard header, and then the action menu has a bunch of other places where you can put your particular action button. Okay, so I'm going to go in and we're going to do a few demos before we go into questions. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the out of the box action buttons. The stock, they call them stock in the documentation, but it just means out of the box. Okay, or you also can hear standard. All that means you get these with the product in version 13.1. Okay, so half of you're not there yet, but you will have these later. Okay, so I've zoomed in a little bit on Sugar here, and we are both in Cell Premier and Serve, and we also are in version 13.1. That's what this particular instance is in. And I've zoomed in so you can see it in Zoom because it's really small font otherwise. So hopefully this looks a little, you can see the words a little better. So I'm going to go to the admin page and I'm going to go down to Studio because that's where we create fields, right? So this is in the developer tools panel right here. So I'm going to go into Studio, and first we're going to look at cases. Scooch this off over here, cases and fields. And there are 3 fields that are out of the box. I'm going to sort by type here and see right here, these 3 action buttons: claim, close, and unassigned. So claim means that when you click the button, you're claiming it for yourself. So I want to show you something that's pretty cool that also has been added in 13.1 in order for this button to work. So let's take a look at it. So in the action, all we're doing is assigning a record, right? And we're going to specifically not pick a particular person, but we want whoever is looking at that record at that time. So if it's me, it would assign it to Andrea. If it's Joe, it's going to assign it to Joe, whoever is looking at it. So this is the part that's new. In order for this to work, we've added a formula. So it's dependent on a formula that is the owner. So isOwner is a new function in Sugar Logic that we've added in order for this property to work. Now, if you don't want it to be current user and you want it to be assigned to a particular person, let's say Jim, then it will assign, every time you click claim, it will assign it to Jim. Now, that claim doesn't make sense. I would change the name of that to assign to Jim or VP of sales, because that's who he is. But that's, I'm going to put it back as current user. So just so you know, okay, so that's a new function that has been added in. So that's claim. And then let's go cancel this one. There's close. And once again, when you click on that, you have to go to the configure button. And it also has a formula. So first of all, it's updating a record. And all it's doing is changing the status field to closed. That's it. Okay. And in order for that to work, we just put a regular formula in. So the way you read formulas is I start from the inside out. So basically we're saying that if the status equals closed, so anything but closed, because it has the word not here. So if it's not, if the status does not equal closed, then we can hit this button and it will close it. Okay. That's what it's going to do. It's going to close the button, close the case, excuse me. And this is what it looks like right here. And it's only displaying in the header and in the focus store header, and then in every single every single menu option. Okay. So it's going to look like this. Okay. There's the preview. Let me cancel that one. And then finally, there's the unassigned. And all this one does is assign it. You can assign it to a particular person. And this one isn't set up yet because it wants you to pick a person. So if I were to say I want to unassign this to someone, it's just going to take out whoever's in the assigned. If I wanted to make it a claim, then I would pick a person to for the action to be. So it's not assigning it to anyone. See how this is blank down here? That's because we're wiping it out. We're making sure that that assigned to field is empty. Okay. All right. So this is what those look like. Let's go to cases. Let's just open up any random case. Doesn't matter. And I've got a claim. So right now, this is assigned to not me. Okay. Voisu, I guess is how you say that. So if I click claim, I'm logged in as Jen Smith. So it changed the assigned to Jen. Okay. Right now, the status is assigned. That right there. If I hit close, it will change it to closed. If I do unassign, then it will take the assigned to field and blank it out. Okay. That's just showing you all three. And you could see that the button's also in different locations. So here's another thing I want to show you while we're here in cases. In the list view, this is just another place they're going to be. I'm just going to show you another option where the menu is. You can see claim, unassign, and close right here in this menu. You don't actually have to go into the record to see it. If I were to look at let's go to this account. And then in the account, down underneath cases, let me open this up. So it has more than 5 cases. This action menu also has my 3 buttons that I've added. So that's just another location. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't have any questions. So we're going to go in and create some new buttons that don't exist already. So the first button I want to create is in the leads module. Okay. Now, even if you don't have leads, like you're in serve and you do cases and bugs and knowledge base articles and things like that, accounts, then just think of this as a record. It doesn't have to necessarily be a record. You can translate this into other records type of records that you create. So once again, we're going to go down to Studio, into leads, and specifically fields. Okay, so this part's all normal. We do this all the time when we create fields. I'm going to check and see if my field is there. There's not even any action buttons. So in the type, so I sorted it by the type of field that it is. So I'm going to click on Add Field, and it brings up my Edit Fields option. And sorry, this is all the fields. This is the one we're on. So I'm going to look at right now. It always defaults to text field. So this is what I have some people do automatically. They just go right to the name and they start typing in whatever they want to type. And then they go, oh, shoot, I forgot to change the data type. So they go up to the data type and change it, and it wipes out everything they have. So I know this seems simple, but always start with at the very top. Pick the type of field that you want, and then add in the additional things. So we're going to actually have I'm going to create 2 fields for this one, 2 buttons for this one field. So I'm just going to call them lead buttons. Okay, very simple. And then I'm going to click configure buttons. And the first button I want to do is a URL. Okay, so open URL. Let me copy my URL over here so I get it right. So I'm just going to copy and paste in the URL. So this is our comparison of the different editions that we have in Sugar. So maybe our sales folks want to be able to say very quickly, pull that up and go, they're talking to the customer. This is the difference between Sell and Serve and Sell Premier and Sell Standard, etc. You may use it as a price list. You may use it as a coding chart, whatever it may be that you want to be able to pull up a URL. Okay, and so I'm not going to call this button, right? That makes no sense. So I'm going to call it comparison chart. And I can even be specific. I can make it as long as I want, but think of it as a size of a button, right? Don't just type a whole it gets kind of messy, right? If you add too many words in, personally, that's my belief. So I want it to show the button, but if I didn't, this is what it would look like. So here's my preview, right? But I'm going to show the word, and the tooltip is link to product comparison chart. Okay. And I want to show the icon. If I don't, it looks like that. I'm going to give it a color of pink. There it is. Actually, it was kind of fuchsia to me, but whatever. And then I'm going to give it a specific icon. So if you don't pick a different icon, they're all going to have the cogwheel. Okay. So let me see. Let me do it this way. So there's little emails. No, I'm not sorry. Document. That's the one I want right there. So there's a one that is a large, so it's kind of a little wider with it folded down on one corner. I just want this one. So it looks like that. Awesome. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the preview section. So do I want this button to look like this or a drop down? So it will have a little action. So if there's two of them, the first one will be at the top. Or I can group them, which means they're going to be smushed into each other side by side. Okay. I'm just going to do them as separate buttons for now. I'll show you what the drop down looks like when I do my second button. Okay. The size, default's fine, but as you can see, small, large is really big. It's really important. Maybe you want it to be bigger, but default is fine. I'm going to show you where you can put these in different locations. So I'm going to put it in the record and in the header, just so you can see it. I wouldn't do that probably in reality. And I'm going to allow it to be on the focus dashboard header. And I'm going to put it in these three places. Okay. The list view subpanel that's on the right, if there's a subpanel for leads anywhere, it will be in that subpanel and also in the record view header. Okay. So that's button number one. Easy peasy, right? The second button I'm going to add. So I'm going to go up here to the top, not this add, because that adds another action to this button. I want a separate button, and I'm going to, this kind of button is going to be called, or is going to be an update. So I'm going to update this record. Okay. And specifically, I'm going to do what's called, I want to reject the lead. So I just want them to be able to click on the button and it reject it. Okay. Which that means that I'm going to have it do a few things. I want it to fill in a couple of fields for me. So I'm going to add the assign to field. And it pops it down here at the bottom. Okay. I'm also going to add the status. There it is. It pops it down. And then also the description. So it's going to update. As soon as I click this button, it's going to update 3 fields. Okay. So for the description field, I'm going to add, hold on. Okay, there it is. No purchase potential. All right, because we are rejecting this one, right? You talk to them, they're like, totally not interested. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to put that in the description. We're going to make sure the status says dead. And this is also if you've configured this list, drop down list somewhere else, it will show that whatever's in your particular drop down. And on the assign to, just so that Sally knows this, I'm going to assign it to, not calculate, sorry. I'm going to assign it to Sally. She's the manager, or excuse me, director of this particular feature. So she's going to get all these that are dead, and she'll probably look at the notes and decide, okay, this one could have been done a different way, and maybe we could have done something with that. And maybe she can recycle them or revive them for later. Okay, FYI. So this is our second button, remember? So here's the first one. And this properties is for this action down here at the bottom. So I'm going to call this button reject. Oops, not highlighted. There we go. and tooltip to status equals dead. Okay. And the icon, what icon do we pick? Okay, we're going to put a thumbs down and give it a different color. High vis. Okay, so, and then over here on the preview, let's go back to buttons. See how they're two separate buttons? There's a little space between them. If I change this to group, it just pushes them together. If I put it as a drop down, the first button is going to be in the label. The second, third, whatever button, however many you have will be underneath it. Okay. So I'm going to do these just as buttons. So they have a little space between them. And those are the two that I'm going to add. So I'm going to click save. And then save the actual field. Just like if you were to create a drop-down, you have to save the drop-down value list in drop-down editor, and then you have to save the field. So I'm going to click save. And then if you want these buttons to actually display in the actual layout, actual record view, you have to go to layouts, specifically record view, and then put them in. So the buttons that are here are called lead buttons, this one right here. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to need to first put in a row, and then I'm going to put my buttons in, just so you can see what they look like when they're actually in the layout. Save and deploy. And then I'm going to open up leads in a new tab here. And it's going to load that new view. So it takes just a few more seconds. So the first time it's going to cache that file of the new layout because it's different than the last time I looked at it. So just give it a few seconds to load. So what we did was create the button. Then we're adding it to the layout. We already told it it's going to be in the header. So we're going to see it in more than one place. So let's just go down here to Sarah. So here are the buttons. You can see them at the top, and you can actually see them in the layout itself. Okay. So the comparison chart actually takes you out to our comparison in a new tab. So it's not going to take away from where you are now. And reject, remember, it's going to change a couple of things, right? So right now, this is let me look for the status. Where is it? Status? There it is. It's showing it as new. So I'm going to click reject. All right, let me zoom back out. There we go. So I clicked on reject. Let me do it again. And sorry, it was an edit view. So it changed some fields, right? It's going to change the status to dead. I can find it. Hold on. There it is. So it changed it to dead. And it also assigned it to Sally. So now Sally is aware that this lead is now dead. Okay. So that's what those two buttons work correctly. Now, honestly, I would not put them in both places, right? If it were me, I would have put the comparison chart maybe in the actual layout and put the reject at the top, but you could have put them both at the top is fine too. Okay. Just showing you different options. Okay. So that's leads. Let me check my time here. We're good. Okay. So next one I'm going to do is opportunities. And on an opportunity record, let's say that you want your sales team has come to you and said, hey, we want a button that's going to be an opportunity record that is going to create a call record. So I'm going to go to, let me zoom back in again, just so you can see better. So to opportunities, fields, let's go a little bit faster this time. Add a field. We're just going to add one field in this one. So we're going to first pick the type of field it is, and it's an action button. And because I'm only going to do one button, I'm going to call it what it is. So this one's going to be log call. So this is either I'm already on the phone with the person or I just hung up and I want to quickly add it. Rather than have to scroll down and click on the sub panel, click the plus sign, fill in all the fields, right? So I'm going to make this easier for my users. So I'm going to create a record, which is the default. So that's cool. We don't have to change that. And also we're going to create a call. And I'm going to add a couple of fields. So I want the first field to be the status field. Status right there. And specifically, I want it to be marked as held because this is a quicker way to mark or put in a call. And the second field that I want to add is direction. This is just going to pre-populate these fields for me. Sorry, that's the wrong one. This one. So that's the direction. And then I'm going to do the subject. Very top one. And on the subject, I can have it calculate, by putting in a particular field if I wanted to, add that particular records field. That makes sense. Or it's easier just to do this. Scooch on over here right beside the field that you selected, and you're going to copy from the record that you're creating from the opportunity name. Okay, so whatever is the name of the opportunity, we're going to copy that from the parent record, which is the opportunity, to the subject line of the call. Okay, so we've got 3 fields already filled in. The only thing that you would have to do is fill in the description, click save, and now that record is filled in. And the only reason you're filling in a description is so that you can put in what you actually talked about with this particular person, because that's going to be different depending on, the situation. So at the top, instead of it called button, I'm going to say log call. I'm going to have the icon be a phone. The color, let's do something different. Green. And tooltips, log. How about this? Enter description of current call. Okay. And then I'm going to leave the size, and the default size is fine. I'm just going to add it to the record. On the action menu, I want it on the header, the subpanel, and the list view. Okay. And save. So it took a lot easier to do that one, right? Even though we had lots of fields that we were going to add in. So we're going to save that. Let that load up. Now, I'm not putting it in the layout of the record, so I don't have to go to layouts. I just have to create the field. So since that's saved, I'm going to go to opportunities and pick an opportunity record. So it's adding in that action button. Okay. Log call right there. There's my record. I can start by putting in the description, blah, blah, blah. And even I should have also linked it to, oh, here it is right here. It automatically links it because I'm clicking from the opportunity, and then I can click save. So it's easy peasy to create that particular record. They just have to put the description in, and now that record is linked to this opportunity. Okay. There's the second one. Oh, I've got 10 minutes left. Okay. So I don't see anything in chat. So I'm going to go ahead and do the last example, which is in cases. So I'm going to go to cases. And in this one, we're also going to do an update record. And this one specifically has to do with escalation. So let's say if someone came in and they want to do put in an escalation to a particular manager. Okay, Will Weston is the manager of, let's say, the customer support division, and we want this case to be escalated to him, so assigned to him in the on the case. So I'm going to sort real quick There are those 3 action buttons that exist already, but we're going to create a new one. So a third one in this particular module. So action, and this one is going to be escalation or escalate. So let's make it a verb. Escalate and then confirm. So we're going to not create a record. We're going to update this current record that we're in. And we want to change the priority to high. And we want to assign it to, which is another field, assign to, oops, I keep thinking it's the second one, right? Assign it to Will. Yep, Will Weston. So the button is going to be escalate. Did I spell that right? No. And then I'm going to put this in the priority high. Assign to Will. Okay. And then on the icon, I'm going to do an arrow up. This one. And the color we'll do is red. I give it a little more accent. Ooh, that's bright. Okay. And then I'm going to have the button display in the record view header only. Okay. Easy. No other place. So then I'm going to click save. Save. Play some Jeopardy music here. Come on. Once that loads, I don't have to put it in layout. I'm just going to go test it. So we're going to go into cases. Scooch on down here to the bottom. And then let's pull up a case. Sorry, it's gone a little slow. Okay, any case, doesn't matter. And there's my, let me zoom back out. There's my escalation. Now, it already has the claim button and the other 2 buttons here, right? Claim unassigned already. So escalate's just another button, and it just looks like a grouping, not a grouping, but they're just separate buttons. So if I click escalate, remember 2 things that are happening. It's going to change the priority here to high, and it's going to assign it to Will. So right now it is assigned not to Will, right? Which is good because you get to see what happens. So I'm going to click escalate. It changes it to priority, puts it in edit mode. So if there's anything else you want to add in, like notes, why are you escalating it? Then you could put that in here and then click save. And then it will, once it's saved, then it will change that. Now there is an option in Studio for that escalate. Let me show you this. They could have added in here that, hold on, autosave. So it will save it automatically. I didn't check that, so that's because I want them to type in why it needs to be escalated. But if you click autosave, that means as soon as you click the escalate button, it's going to change those fields and save it at the same time. Okay. All right. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. I'm going to get a little bit of time here to, if anybody has any additional questions. I didn't see any in chat. So if you do, let me know. Now, also, if you don't have one right now, that's fine. But you think, you go back to your team, you say, hey, I just watched this action button webinar. These are some ideas that I have, and they have questions. Email university@sugarcrm.com, and anyone on our team will be able to answer you those questions. Or if you have questions about other types of training. There are some resources that I want to point out. There are action button help articles and the application guide, or excuse me, the administration guide specifically going through how to create action buttons. I've given you also a link to Sugar Logic, the section in documentation, and then also the link once again to university@sugarcrm.com. So I'm going to post the recording and the slides to Sugar Club soon as the recording's done from Zoom. So you'll have those available to you, and I'll email everybody that attended this particular session so they can go right to the link. So that will be this afternoon. Well, afternoon, excuse me, my time. So one other plug, I'm going to say this real quick. Sugar Connected is coming up. There's 3 different locations that you may want to attend. One of them is in Austin, first one coming up in September. So if you're interested, just do Sugar Connected 2023 in Google search, and it will take you, and you can register for a session in the future. There's also training available too at the one in Austin for sure. So I just wanted to thank you. I'm checking one more time. No more questions. Okay. If there's any questions afterwards, please let us know. But thanks for attending today's webinar. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you in a class in the future. If not, have a great rest of your day and enjoy creating action buttons. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.